Imagine walking into a high-stakes executive meeting and telling your billionaire boss, directly to his face, that his ideas are completely foolish. Imagine telling him his logic is profoundly flawed. Imagine calling his entire presentation a devastating waste of time. In 99% of companies on Earth, you would be fired before you even reached your desk to pack up your things. Security would escort you out of the building. Your career would be over. But at Bridgewater Associates, you would be promoted. You would be celebrated. This sounds like a recipe for absolute corporate anarchy. It sounds like a deeply toxic nightmare designed to destroy team morale. Human beings are not wired for this level of blunt, unvarnished criticism. We crave validation. We protect our egos at all costs. Yet this exact behavior, this relentless, unapologetic friction, created the single most successful hedge fund in human history. A financial empire that has managed over $150 billion. A firm that routinely predicts global economic catastrophes years before the rest of Wall Street even wakes up. There is a hidden mechanism behind this madness. It is a psychological algorithm that turns brutal honesty into pure, compounding profit. We will reveal exactly how this mechanism works and how you can actually apply it to your own business a little later in this breakdown. Wall Street is typically a fortress of massive egos. It is an industry built on absolute confidence, sharp suits, and an unspoken rule that the smartest guy in the room never, ever admits he is wrong. Information is hoarded. Weakness is punished. The traditional corporate hierarchy operates like a military dictatorship where orders flow down and compliance flows up. But Ray Dalio, the enigmatic founder of Bridgewater Associates, looked at that traditional model and realized it was fundamentally broken. He saw that standard corporate culture was a breeding ground for catastrophic blind spots. He decided to build something entirely different. He built an organization based on a philosophy he called radical transparency. So how did a culture that forces employees to constantly and ruthlessly criticize each other out in the open become the ultimate competitive advantage in the high-stakes world of global finance? That is the exact question we are answering today. To understand the genius of this strategy, we have to travel back to the early 1980s. Ray Dalio was a young, incredibly ambitious investor. He was brilliant. He was charismatic. And he was dangerously arrogant. Dalio had built a sophisticated model of the global economy. By looking at debt cycles, he saw a massive crisis looming on the horizon. He predicted that emerging markets, specifically Mexico, were going to default on their massive debts. He believed this would trigger a catastrophic domino effect, leading to a global depression that would rival the 1930s. He was so confident in this prediction that he bet everything on it. He went on national television. He sat before Congress. He loudly and proudly declared that the end of the financial world was imminent. He positioned his entire firm and all of his clients' money to profit from an absolute economic collapse. Then the unthinkable happened. Mexico did default. Dalio was absolutely right about the trigger. But he was dead wrong about the outcome. Instead of a depression, the Federal Reserve intervened aggressively. The stock market ignited. It launched into one of the greatest, most explosive bull runs in the history of American finance. The market skyrocketed, and Ray Dalio was caught completely on the wrong side of history. The financial devastation was absolute. His investments were wiped out. His clients abandoned him in droves. The brilliant prodigy had lost everything. The crisis was so severe that Bridgewater Associates was reduced to a single employee. Ray Dalio himself. He was forced to borrow $4,000 from his father just to pay his family's living expenses. This was the ultimate rock bottom. It was a humiliating, agonizing failure broadcast on the national stage. The J-curve had dipped into a terrifying abyss. In the dark aftermath of this collapse, Dalio faced a brutal reckoning. Most people would have blamed the market. They would have blamed the Federal Reserve for acting irrationally. But Dalio did something exceedingly rare. He blamed his own ego. He realized that his absolute certainty was his greatest liability. His desire to be right was far stronger than his desire to find the truth. He had surrounded himself with people who validated his brilliance rather than people who challenged his assumptions. He recognized that the human brain is a flawed machine, highly susceptible to bias, emotion, and the deep-seated fear of looking foolish. Dalio knew he had to rebuild his firm, but he could not build it the same way. He needed a system that would permanently protect him from his own arrogance. He needed to build an organization where the truth was more important than anyone's failings. This terrifying realization was the birthplace of radical transparency. Dalio began to meticulously construct a culture designed to surface disagreement. He did not want a democracy where everyone gets an equal vote. Democracies in business are slow and often lead to mediocre compromises. He also did not want an autocracy where the boss is always right. He wanted an idea meritocracy, a system where the absolute best ideas win regardless of who they come from. But building an idea meritocracy is incredibly painful. It requires human beings to fight against millions of years of evolutionary biology. Our brains are hardwired to perceive criticism as a physical threat. When someone attacks our ideas, our amygdala fires. We go into fight or flight mode. Dalio calls this the battle between the two yous. There is the logical, higher-level you that wants to learn and grow. And there is the primal, emotional you that just wants to be loved and validated. To overcome this, Bridgewater had to implement systems of extreme friction. Every single meeting at the firm was recorded. Every conversation was archived and made available to every employee. There was nowhere to hide. If you talked behind someone's back, it was a fireable offense. You had to say it to their face. But the friction went much deeper than just recording meetings. Dalio introduced a piece of custom technology called the dot collector. Imagine sitting in a boardroom. While someone is pitching an idea, everyone else in the room is holding an iPad. They are actively rating the speaker in real time across dozens of different attributes. Is the speaker demonstrating clear logic? Are they being defensive? Are they showing creative thinking? Every employee is constantly collecting dots from their peers. It is a relentless stream of real-time, unfiltered feedback. For new employees, this environment is notoriously agonizing. The transition is brutal. People cry. The turnover rate in the first 18 months is remarkably high. It is simply too much reality for the average person to handle. But for those who survive the crucible, something extraordinary happens. The ego begins to dissolve. When you are constantly confronted with a highly accurate, data-driven map of your own weaknesses, you stop trying to hide them. You accept them. You begin to rely on your colleagues who possess the strengths that you lack. The friction of constant criticism eventually transforms into radical open-mindedness. And this leads us to the most brilliant component of Dalio's machine. It is a concept called believability-weighted decision-making. Because the dot collector gathers millions of data points on every employee, the system literally knows who is historically good at what. If the firm is making a high-stakes decision about a complex mathematical model, the system gives more voting weight to the opinions of people who have proven track records in complex math. It completely removes office politics. It destroys the high PPO effect, the highest paid person's opinion. In a believability-weighted system, a 24-year-old junior analyst with a massive believability score in data analysis can literally outvote the billionaire founder of the company. This extreme, pain-inducing culture of transparency was finally put to the ultimate test in the late 2000s. While the rest of Wall Street was drunk on the subprime mortgage boom, Bridgewater's algorithms and fiercely independent thinkers started seeing massive anomalies. Because the culture demanded that junior analysts challenge senior executives without fear of retribution, the contrarian data was not buried. It was dragged into the light. The idea meritocracy relentlessly debated the numbers. They built a depression gauge to track the exact metrics that precede economic collapses. In 2008, the global financial system violently imploded. Major banks vanished overnight. Trillions of dollars of wealth evaporated. The world descended into chaos. But Bridgewater Associates did not just survive the crash. They thrived because their culture of radical transparency forced them to face the brutal truth of the market before anyone else. They were perfectly positioned. While the rest of the world burned, Bridgewater delivered double-digit positive returns to their investors. They had successfully monetized the truth. So what is the ultimate revelation here? What is the profound secret hidden inside Dalio's radical experiment? It is a complete redefinition of what corporate data actually is. In a traditional company, the most valuable data is completely invisible. It is hidden in the silence of a boardroom where nobody wants to contradict the CEO. It is buried in the resentful chatter around the water cooler. It is lost in the brilliant ideas that junior employees are simply too terrified to share. Traditional companies leak massive amounts of intellectual capital simply because their culture demands politeness over progress. They prioritize emotional comfort over operational reality. Dalio's secret is that he weaponized office friction. He took the hidden, unspoken thoughts of his workforce and forced them into the open. He built a machine that actively harvests human disagreement. Radical transparency transforms the subjective, emotional mess of human interaction into hard, actionable data. It completely removes the devastating blind spots that eventually destroy traditional organizations. By making everyone painfully accountable to the truth, the entire company becomes a hyper-efficient, self-correcting organism. And that's the secret. The intense discomfort of radical transparency is not a side effect of the strategy. The discomfort is the strategy. It is the very fire that burns away the ego and leaves only the most optimal, profitable decisions behind. But executing this strategy in the real world is incredibly complex. You cannot just walk into your office tomorrow and demand everyone start brutally criticizing each other. Without the proper systems, radical transparency instantly devolves into a toxic, chaotic nightmare. People get hurt. Teams fracture. The business grinds to a halt. Bridgewater had to spend millions building custom software, like the dot collector, to mathematically manage this intense human capital experiment. To build a culture of high performance and deep alignment, you cannot rely on spreadsheets and good intentions. You need an operational backbone that seamlessly tracks performance, manages feedback, and organizes human data with absolute precision. That is where PulseMina HCM comes in. PulseMina HCM is exactly the kind of sophisticated human capital management software required to build a modern, high-trust organization. It provides the essential digital infrastructure to align your entire workforce. It allows leaders to implement continuous feedback loops, track employee development, and manage complex organizational structures without losing operational control. If you want to scale a culture that actually values performance over politics, PulseMina HCM is the platform that turns that philosophy into reality. Ultimately, the story of Bridgewater Associates teaches us a profound and enduring business principle. The most dangerous threat to your success is not your competition. It is not the economy. It is the comforting lies you tell yourself. The future of business belongs to the organizations that actively seek the truth, no matter how much it stings. It belongs to the leaders who are willing to surrender their ego to the collective intelligence of their team. Radical transparency proves that when you stop protecting people's feelings, you unlock their actual potential. If you learn something new, hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company's strategy should we unlock next?